I turn on shadows. Now you can see that my scene is well lit, like everything's very bright, but it is all lit with one color, and that color is white. So we just have a big white light shining from all around. So what we want to do is change that to match a particular sky. So I am going to click on our checkerboard right here, and we need to add a file. Now everything went black, and that's because it doesn't have an image yet. So we need to give it one. So right here, our image name setting, we need to adjust that by clicking on our folder. So I have several HDRI files downloaded already. If you need HDRI files, you can get some here in our course with additional 3D resources. You can also head over to polyhaven.com and under assets, look for HDRIs. And that's where you can find a bunch of different HDRIs. So if we head back to Maya and look in my downloads folder, I'm gonna find one of those HDRIs. So I have here Lake Pier. This is one of those ones from Polyhaven, so I'm gonna open it up. All right, so now everything's not black anymore, right? Now we are getting lighting from our scene. And even further, if I switch into Arnold view and press play, now I am getting light bounces from this HDRI, okay? I'm gonna switch myself back to viewport for the rest of this. So what we wanna do next is actually assign different materials to our different objects. Now I've already done this with this scene. If I switch on textures and turn off default textures, you can see I already have textures, but I'm gonna show you how to add textures to each object. So here on my floor, hold down your right click to get your marking menu, and we're gonna go to assign new material. Standard surface is our first one we're going to use. And standard surface has lots of these presets in it, right? So you can go ahead and choose one of our defaults. So maybe we make our floor chrome. That's going to make it very reflective, right? So immediately we're going to see the sky reflected in that chrome surface. All right, jump over to my table. I'm going to show you a different way to do this. If you switch to your rendering workspace, here, remember we're in rendering workspace, rendering shelf, and I click on that first bubble, I can add that standard surface this way as well. Now you do have other types of materials here, right? And I strongly encourage you to research these different materials, right? We do have toon shaders in Maya as well, but we're not going to cover those today. So we get a standard surface, assign it to the table, and maybe this one's going to be copper. Okay, same deal for my chair, standard surface, and we'll do something non-reflective. We'll do a thin plastic here. Okay, and you can see here in our viewport editor, this thin plastic is see-through, right? And so if you want it to be less see-through, we're gonna go down to this transmission property and drop that weight, okay? So transmission is the see-throughness, right? The opacity. And if we remove some of the transparency by dropping the weight, then we will increase its opacity. All right, so I'm gonna switch back over to my Arnold again. All right, and then deselect, and there we go. So you can see that chrome is very shiny. Now you'll notice that when I move around, the viewport is going to swim into pixels and then gradually get cleared up again. And that is because Maya is working very hard to calculate all the light bounces when we're using the Arnold renderer. All right. In viewport, we are not calculating all those light bounces. It is an instantaneous render, like a video game render. But if we are using Arnold, then it's going to do a lot more math, and so it's going to take a little longer for us to see what we need to see. Okay, so you can switch back and forth between those two. So that is one way to set up your lights, right? A skydome. So let's talk about a second way. If I select my skydome and remove it, now everything turns black because I have lights, scene lights turned on, but no lights. So I'm going to jump back over to that Arnold shelf, and now we're going to do our area light setting. What I'm going to do is add an area light. You can see it comes in the center of your scene just like any other object. Tap W to move it. And let's look at what we have here. So if I deselect it, you can see here there's a little stick coming out of one side, right? We have our square of light area, and then this stick points the direction the light is shining. So if I come in and rotate my light, then the light will shine in a different direction. Well, it's not shining very much light here. Maybe I see a little bit on the chair. No, I don't see any at all. So if I crank up my intensity here, still nothing, right? So, oh, there we go. We can see it right there. We have this one thin stripe. So right now, this light is not doing very much for me. If I scale it, you would think a bigger light equals more intensity. No, look at that. You can see there's a big dim light there. But what you can do is uncheck this normalize box, and now all of a sudden you have this whole area with that intensity. Okay, so then we can drop that down a little bit maybe. Now maybe we want to give it a soft edge. It's going to be hard to do that with a reflective surface like this. We can round it off a little bit, right? We can increase our exposure. Now, this is a very harsh one light setup, but we can also Command D to duplicate this light. And I can set up our standard 3-point lighting system, right? Maybe I have those all pointing at the chair. Bring it in. Command D. So I'm just using my standard W, E, and R. To get that. All right, so now we have a very stark light setup. Let's see what this looks like in Arnold. All right, so everything's very harsh, very bright, right? We can drop the intensity on those side lights maybe. And if we select our plane on the floor and increase the roughness, then that's going to wash out the harshness of those edges for us, right? And so now we've got something that's starting to look really well lit and bright, right? It's not anything like our daytime scene was, but it is something that is very interesting.